Everyone's calling this Harley's big comeback. But a comeback to what exactly? 6 new models are on the radar for 2026, and they're already stirring up rumors, frustration, and cautious hope. For veteran riders who've seen this dance before, the real question isn't what they look like. It's whether they hold up when the miles get long, the heat kicks in, and the roads get rough. Is this the comeback riders have been waiting for, or another expensive experiment? Which bike will define Harley's next decade? And what happens if it fails? Because by the end, you'll see this isn't just another model year, it's a make-or-break moment. Number 6. Harley Davidson Police Road Glide. The first thing a veteran eye notices is purpose. This is a highway tool built to work long hours without excuses. It speaks a different language than chrome and coffee. It must idle for hours on a hot shoulder, then leap into traffic and stop hard without drama. It needs storage that swallows first aid kits, flares, a radio rack, and a rain layer. And it must do all that while the engine breathes clean and the charging system never blinks. That duty cycle exposes truth about heat management, brake consistency, and steering stability better than any brochure. Many of us cross states on older touring machines and learn the same lessons the hard way. For a rider who believes a grand tour should be iron butt ready out of the crate, the Police Road Glide is a reminder of first principles. Cooling strategy matters more than paint. A neutral rider triangle matters more than a razor-thin tire profile. Clear lamps and dependable charging matter more than a large touch screen. We remember when the priority list started with range, wind protection, and service access. We remember building a roadside tool roll and checking tire dates in the garage the night before wheels turn. Duty trim also spotlights the details that add up over 10 hours. Lever effort should stay consistent when the weather swings from cool morning fog to late day heat. The saddle should spread weight across the miles instead of pinching, and the footboard should let an old knee change position without pain. Mirrors should stay steady when the asphalt turns to patchwork, and the fairing should cut wind without shaking the helmet. Switchgear should be positive with gloves, and wiring should be routed where rain and vibration cannot bully it. Because the Police Road Glide carries crash bars, siren gear, and radios, the frame and mounts must handle mass without flex. That reality benefits any touring rider who still stacks days and tracks fuel stops like notches. A bike that holds a straight line after a hard stop with full bags is a bike that earns respect, whether it wears duty colors or weekend paint. When the front geometry stays calm and the rear shock does not pogo under throttle, the rider eases into the rhythm that makes distance feel simple again. Comfort isn't softness. It's control without strain. The Police Road Glide's duty design keeps riders ready for tomorrow, not recovery. With real wind protection, firm seats, solid brakes, and predictable suspension, it restores honest miles. True touring integrity means staying steady through crosslines and rough pavement, mile after loyal mile. Beneath the fairing, 1,746 cubic centimeters breathe out 102 horsepower and twist up 111 pound-feet of torque. There is also pride in a platform that shrugs off abuse. Long idles test cooling, stop-and-go tests, clutch feel, and curb cuts test clearance and mounting points. When a machine survives that grind, it earns quiet credibility with riders who have done time with tool bags and torque wrenches. The Police Road Glide does not chase trends, it chases reliability. For older riders, that is music you can trust. The next motorcycle takes that duty-bred honesty and aims it at weekends. Number 5. Harley Davidson Lowrider ST. Every few years, a motorcycle comes along that speaks directly to the rider who refuses to compromise. Someone who still values torque, cornering, and a seat that feels right for 6-hour rides. The Lowrider ST stands as that statement in 2026. An evolution born from the same bloodline that once put Harley's name at the top of the sport cruiser segment. It keeps the muscle and sharpens the manners, proving that a bike can still feel alive without asking for constant correction or apology. The Lowrider ST is a handshake between the past and the present. It carries the same narrow waistline that older riders remember from the Dyna era, but the handling has matured. The front end feels planted, the brakes stay firm under heat, and the exhaust note reminds anyone within earshot that this is still a real Harley at heart. For the rider who used to chase canyon lines on weekends and now prefers a clear road at sunrise, this bike bridges the distance between memory and modern muscle. Riders who have lived through decades of model cycles can see what the engineers did here. They finally respected that balance matters more than gimmicks. The torquey curve sits broad and honest, pulling from low revs without protest. You can roll through traffic in third and never feel starved. The clutch effort feels lighter than the old cable setups, but still carries enough weight to feel mechanical. Every control feels familiar, not fancy. And that makes a difference to those of us who still work our own oil changes and trust a socket set more than a service app. The saddle of the Lowrider ST deserves mention. It supports you instead of pinning you, built for an older frame that knows what long miles do to a lower back. The mid-controls and bar reach land naturally, letting a rider shift weight when wind or fatigue kicks in. That ergonomics decision separates this machine from many modern cruisers designed around. Short test comfort. This bike stays comfortable when the clock passes noon and the road still stretches west. Styling remains restrained and purposeful. The fairing redirects wind without strain, and lighting prioritizes visibility over flare. Every detail, lever weight, cable routing, saddlebag latch, shows craftsmanship over ornament. Built for riders, not showrooms, its quiet design speaks respect through function, proving practicality is the purest form of Harley tradition. On the road, the Lowrider ST feels smaller than its weight suggests. Turn-in is steady and mid-corner corrections happen with ease. The suspension absorbs expansion joints without drama and keeps the chassis calm when the pavement ripples. Every response feels predictable, which is the real luxury for a veteran rider who values trust over flash. The soundtrack is deep but controlled. Enough bark to mark your presence, but never the tin rattle of excess. For riders who remember tuning carburetors on old shovelheads or setting valves on early Evo engines, this machine feels like a return to principles. It does not promise technology for its own sake. It promises consistency. It wants you to use it, not merely look at it. In a time when many bikes chase attention, the Lowrider ST chases road lines. Its 1923 cubic centimeter heart hammers out 105 horsepower with a thick 125 pound-feet of torque. But the next motorcycle on this list takes that devotion to handling and merges it with full touring confidence, proving that distance and dignity still belong in the same sentence. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Harley's 2026 comeback, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Tell us which new model you think truly brings Harley back. Number 4. Harley Davidson Sportster S. Every rider who lived through the golden decades of American motorcycling remembers the first time they heard the word Sportster. It meant something simple and honest. Two wheels, a solid heartbeat between the knees, and the kind of torque that demanded respect even from bigger bikes. The newest version brings that same stubborn pride into 2026, but this time it does so with precision engineering and a cleaner burn. Harley may have changed the materials, but the intent is exactly the same, to remind riders that freedom does not require bulk, only balance. The Sportster name carries history like a road scar. It was never meant to outshine touring rigs or chase records on the salt flats. It was built for the real streets, the back roads, the stoplights, and the cold mornings when an engine's first cough told you more about tuning than any diagnostic screen could. This newest generation continues that purpose but adds reliability and refinement that the old models could only dream about. Underneath the modern electronics and tighter tolerances, you still feel that unmistakable throb when the throttle opens and the frame talks back through your boots. For older riders who remember setting mixture screws by ear, this machine feels like the return of a conversation that had gone silent. Every control is deliberate. The clutch requires confidence. The shifter feels solid and the brakes demand respect instead of apology. It is not built to flatter the inexperienced. It rewards riders who understand rhythm. There is no false charm or artificial noise, just mechanical honesty shaped by technology that knows when to stay quiet. The balance of weight and geometry is where this update earns its keep. A little over 500 pounds means it carries itself without effort, and the low center of gravity makes parking lot maneuvers almost graceful. The inverted fork keeps the front steady over uneven asphalt, while the single rear shock smooths the edge off expansion joints without turning the ride soft. It is the kind of setup that keeps you connected to the pavement instead of floating above it. Aesthetically, the Sportster S stays muscular but refined. The exhaust traces a hard line along the frame, the tank sits proud, and the bars rest at that perfect midpoint between aggression and comfort. The wide tires give it a planted look that suits the torquey curve. It grips instead of guessing. Lighting is modern but not sterile. Every diode sits where it serves function first. The instrument cluster is compact, easy to read in sunlight, and mercifully simple. No overload of screens or menus. Just enough information to keep a rider informed and nothing that distracts from the sound of the engine. For riders who once owned an 883 or an Ironhead, this feels like meeting an old friend. Wiser but still wild. It pulses deep, responds instantly, and hums steady at speed. After 50 miles, hands relax, shoulders drop, and the road clears the mind better than any medicine. The Sportster S does not chase nostalgia. It refines it. It honors the men and women who kept the name alive through decades of change by building a motorcycle that stays true to the road's simple truth: control, connection, and confidence. In an age of oversized machines and endless accessories, it is a reminder that sometimes less truly rides better. A 975 cubic centimeter engine sends a sharp kick of 121 horsepower and a punchy 94 pound-feet of torque. The next motorcycle on the list dares to go where most Harleys don't, off the asphalt. Number 3. Harley Davidson, Pan America, 1,250. Among all the machines carrying Harley's name into the future, few have challenged tradition as boldly as the Pan America. It stands as proof that the company can still build a motorcycle that thrives beyond polished asphalt without abandoning the torquey-heavy heartbeat that defines the brand. For 2026, the evolution of this model focuses on refinement, stability, and endurance, traits that seasoned riders recognize instantly as the difference between an experiment and a legend. The Pan America was a statement when it launched, but this new version refines that message into something more disciplined. It no longer feels like Harley's attempt to prove a point. It feels like a tool built by people who understand long miles, mixed terrain, and the discipline of maintenance. For those who came up wrenching on their own touring rigs, this motorcycle shows what happens when modern engineering meets old-school expectations for durability. The frame is stout, the engine cooling is balanced, and the electronics are tuned to enhance, not replace, the instincts of an experienced rider. Riders who have crossed more than a few states know how important consistency is when a day turns unpredictable. Rain, gravel, and long heat, cycles destroy lesser bikes. The Pan America handles them with quiet confidence. The adaptive ride height is more than a trick. It changes the relationship between the machine and its rider. At stops, the suspension lowers just enough to give shorter riders a secure footing. At speed, it lifts back up for clearance and control. The system moves seamlessly, and once you've experienced it on a steep downhill stop, you understand the engineering respect behind it. The ergonomics speak directly to the touring mindset that Harley built its empire on. The seat is firm but forgiving, and the upright position spares the back while still keeping arms ready for rougher trails. The windscreen adjusts quickly without tools, a small but vital mercy when crosswinds start pushing late in the day. Controls fall exactly where your hands expect, and nothing feels delicate or ornamental. It is built to be used, hard, often, and with confidence. Underneath, the Revolution Max engine remains the soul of the bike. It delivers torque low in the range where riders feel it most, then stretches into a clean surge for overtaking. It doesn't shake or overheat when crawling through traffic, and it doesn't run out of breath when you decide to chase the horizon for another 100 miles. The gearbox shifts cleanly, and the clutch feedback is balanced. Firm enough for control, light enough for endurance. The Pan America's 2026 evolution looks refined and mature, with softened lines, improved lighting, and functional colors that age gracefully. Easier to remove panels and standardized luggage mounts simplify maintenance and travel. Every thoughtful detail shows Harley listened to real riders, prioritizing practicality and endurance over corporate design trends. For older riders who have always equated Harley with long-haul comfort, this adventure machine may still seem like an outlier. but ride it once, and the purpose becomes clear. It is the touring bike that just happens to handle dirt, a highway cruiser that refuses to surrender when the pavement ends. It keeps its composure under load, its dignity in bad weather, and its spirit under every throttle twist. The Pan America proves that Harley can evolve without erasing its roots. It is the brand's bridge between the gravel of Alaska and the highways of Arizona. A machine that respects every rider who ever patched a tire by hand or rode through a storm because turning back wasn't an option. Inside its frame, 1,252 cubic centimeters surge to 150 horsepower, backed by 94 pound-feet of torque. The next motorcycle on this list expands that same blend of precision and power into a full touring masterpiece built for riders who measure days in miles in pride and endurance. If you believe Harley's legacy deserves real riders keeping the truth alive, make sure to subscribe, because every week we uncover what's next for America's most iconic motorcycles. Number 2. Harley Davidson CVO Road Glide ST. Every generation of Harley riders can point to one machine that defined pure dominance in its time. For 2026, that crown remains firmly on the head of the CVO Road Glide ST. It is the motorcycle that merges the mechanical pride of old Harley engineering with the discipline of modern refinement. This carryover model takes what already worked, a powerful frame, an unapologetic engine, and miles of proven highway credibility, and smooths the rough edges without touching its soul. The CVO Road Glide ST is what happens when performance and purpose shake hands. It is not a stripped-down racer pretending to be a tourer, and it is not a bloated cruiser chasing nostalgia. It is the intersection of both. A long-haul machine with the body of a fighter and the manners of a gentleman. Every movement of the throttle reminds you that the engine was built for authority, not compromise. The deep surge of torque hits early, clean and confident, the kind of power that demands respect without ever feeling reckless. Older riders who lived through the big displacement wars of the late 20th century will understand the satisfaction of pulling hard in top gear and feeling the entire motorcycle stay composed. The fairing with its sharp-nosed stance is more than an aesthetic choice. It channels air around the rider with the efficiency of a wind-tunnel-tested tourer, cutting fatigue over long days. The new venting system fine-tunes airflow at highway speeds, letting you ride farther without battling turbulence. The cockpit layout brings control back to the rider. Gauges are large and legible, and the infotainment display is clear, with tactile buttons placed where gloved fingers can find them without guesswork. This is design born from experience, not marketing. Underneath the sculpted panels, the suspension work is what makes this refined version so effective. The front fork feels taut without being harsh, translating road texture honestly, but filtering out the chatter that wears down older wrists and shoulders. The rear shock, fully adjustable, lets a rider tailor comfort or stiffness depending on load, a detail that serious tourers appreciate more than chrome. The balance of damping and rebound keeps the chassis poised even on uneven pavement. It is a small miracle that a motorcycle of this size can carve through a long, sweeping corner with such composure. For those who have logged decades in the saddle, the seat is where judgment always lands. The CVO Road Glide ST delivers the kind of support that carries you past 500 miles in a day without regret. It holds you firm but not tight, leaving room for movement as the hours stretch. Floorboards are placed to keep the knees at a natural bend, and the reach to the bars feels instinctive. This level of ergonomic honesty is what separates engineering from styling. The fit is not made to impress a showroom crowd. It is made for the man who measures comfort in miles, not minutes. The 2026 refinements are subtle but impactful. Cleaner finishes, richer colors, and neatly hidden wiring. Lighting shines sharper at night, and the rear design flows smoothly into the saddlebags, forming a cohesive, fast-looking silhouette. It commands quiet authority, confident, composed, and unmistakably built for seasoned riders. From 1,983 cubic centimeters comes a commanding 127 horsepower and a mighty 145 pound-feet of torque. So as you can imagine, the CVO Road Glide ST does not apologize for its price because value here is measured in endurance, precision, and legacy. It is the kind of motorcycle that will still draw nods 20 years from now, long after the trends have moved on. For older riders who demand both comfort and command, it stands as a benchmark, a living reminder that refinement and raw torque can share the same space without losing authenticity. Now finally, the final motorcycle on this list might just be the most important yet. It closes the countdown by grounding all this engineering ambition in accessibility, proving that Harley still remembers how to build a machine for every rider who simply wants to feel the open road again. Number 1. Harley Davidson Sprint Entry Model. Every legacy brand reaches a moment where pride meets necessity, and for Harley in 2026, that moment arrives with the Sprint. This is not a rebranding exercise or a half-hearted import with a badge. It is a calculated return to accessibility, a small displacement motorcycle built to welcome new riders without insulting the veterans who defined the name. Harley knows that the next generation of riders will not start on heavy touring rigs, but that does not mean they have to start on machines without character. The Sprint exists to bridge that gap with simplicity, affordability, and a surprising respect for tradition. The Sprint is more than a price point. It is a philosophy. For years, Harley's entry-level offerings struggled to capture the real essence of what drew riders to the brand in the first place: feel, sound, and soul. This machine fixes that by simplifying the formula instead of diluting it. It carries the same mechanical honesty that built Harley's reputation in the post-war years, where torque mattered more than horsepower bragging and the connection between throttle and rear tire was everything. You feel the heartbeat of the engine through the pegs and bars, but it is tamed, approachable, and balanced for riders who are still learning to read the rhythm of a real motorcycle. The proportions are familiar, compact yet confident. The seating position keeps the rider upright, the bars wide enough for leverage, and the foot controls placed for comfort rather than show. It feels solid without being intimidating, which makes it just as appealing to seasoned riders looking for a lightweight runabout as it is to beginners taking their first serious ride. The low weight and balanced center of gravity makes slow-speed maneuvering almost effortless, while the clutch and gearbox deliver the mechanical feel older riders miss from newer machines. Every component on the Sprint serves a purpose. The steel frame is simple, built for durability and easy maintenance. The single-disc braking setup with anti-lock braking system ensures predictable stopping power, while the suspension strikes a rare compromise, comfortable on pothole-ridden city streets, but stable enough for a 60-mile highway cruise. Lighting is full LED, clear and understated. The instrument display is analog-digital hybrid, offering just the essentials without turning the cockpit into a tablet. It is the kind of layout that speaks to practicality rather than pretense. For veteran riders, the Sprint stirs quiet nostalgia, echoing the small Harleys of the 1960s that taught mechanical respect and freedom without debt. Revived for a new generation, it trades exclusivity for authenticity. Its softer single-cylinder thump still carries the same creed. Freedom lives in miles, not cubic centimeters. The Sprint's brilliance is its honesty. No touring pretense, no muscle posturing, just pure riding spirit. Simple to maintain, affordable to run, and built for everyday roads, it keeps the joy of riding alive. For veterans, it's a dependable second bike. For newcomers, a first true handshake with America's century-old freedom on two wheels. At its core, 450 cubic centimeters awaken with 37 horsepower and a lively 31 pound-feet of torque. As Harley enters its next chapter, the Sprint stands as proof that the company has remembered something vital. Before the luxury models, before the global headlines, and before the endless chrome, there was just the ride, the heartbeat, the balance, and the independence that no car or screen could ever replace. The Sprint captures that feeling again. It may be smaller, lighter, and simpler than the touring giants above it in this countdown, but its mission is just as heavy: to carry the legend forward by reminding everyone why it started. These 6 bikes remind us of something deeper. Harley's comeback isn't about paint or horsepower. It's about honoring every rider who patched a tire on the roadside, rode through rain, or turned a wrench at dawn. So tell us, what's the one bike that never let you down? Comment your story below. And if you're here for real talk, hit that like button and subscribe. This is just the beginning.